Hello and welcome back to Resolutionary Leaders. I'm your host, Helena Gotto, and today I have the lovely Ruth Easterling. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Helena. It's so fun to be here. We've been talking about this a lot, so I'm excited to be here and to be able to share with you.
Thank me too. So Ruth is an expert coach and does a lot of leadership training, C-suite leadership training. She has her own company. It's called On Purpose L3. And this is the reason I really resonate with Ruth and wanted her to come on is I think when you're not on purpose, life can really suck,
Mhm.
particularly in any area, but particularly at work. And so getting yourself on purpose is valuable. And I want us to dig into that today. So, where should we start? How do you get?
We could just start with the whole on purpose. One of the things, the reason why I actually ended up naming my company this is because what I found was the more I helped people, businesses, really to be able to know what they're for and what they're known for, is I kept finding that they were lacking in their own purpose. Who are they trying to reach? Like sometimes businesses will know their vision and they'll know like their mission, but they lack the foundation. And that's what I began to see. And then I began to see it happening in individuals' lives also, is that we want to build, like, shall we say, a house, which is like our professional life or our business, but then our foundation is really cracked or it's not solid. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, if something happens, it all falls down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the whole woo self care has really shifted into you have to take care of yourself so you can do all the things that you want to do. You can be of service. And I think when you are on purpose, when you're
Hmm.
wanting to do something valuable, you have a mission, then that self-care is so important because otherwise you just don't have the resilience and the ability to just keep going. I'll out myself and say that Ruth coached me for a while, is still my coach. And I went to Ruth initially because you just don't know what you don't know. And you plod along and you think you're doing whatever. And so wanting to see what my blind spots are. When you coach people, do you find that there are common blind spots that people have, or it's all over the place?
It's all over the place, but I think that there are a couple that we really wrestle with is the awareness. Because what happens to most of us is that we get into our, shall we say, day to day, and we're like, dude, I'm doing great. And I'm just like cruising right along. And then all of a sudden it's something that's in your rug and you trip over it and you fall on your face, or for some people, it's just a trip. And you're like,
Yeah.
dude, what was that?
Mm.
And just as an example, I literally just got off a call and I'm coaching an entrepreneur. She's doing fabulous. And I'm super excited about it because she had a 20K month and I was so excited. Couldn't wait for the call today. And she had something in her rug she tripped over and she got in there and what happens often to us is it's usually about our family, about a partner, kids, things like that, that just like you were saying, Helena, is that we just forget about those things. Like we think, oh yeah, they're going fine. And then we trip. And
Mhm.
that is literally where she was at. I did not see this coming and this happened. And I think what it ends up doing is we have to do a little reflection and come to awareness of where it is that we're just not tuning into, if that makes sense.
Mm. Speaking of tuning into, I just listened to something yesterday and it was talking about the difference between gut checking. And I've had this struggle with a lot of the time your gut is wrong because of bias and just unconscious bias, things that we
Hmm.
don't realize, that the whole thing about people that are similar to you, you just like them more. And people that are very different, you have the sense of, something's a little off. And the guy was talking about the difference between a gut check and a fear check. And I realized that is really smart because so often we let that fear center guide us. And if we can really get into our gut and do a real gut check, and I think that's what you do, right? That's the work that you do is you make sure the person is not in fear, but they're actually sunk into having a gut check. And that's what she hadn't done about whatever it was that suddenly she tripped over. she hadn't gut checked herself.
And she literally, I said, you know what, you can have a 20K month, but if you don't take care of this one issue, it will impact you. Like you won't be able to have another 20K month
Right.
because it's going to stop you from being able to go forward. And so she's, oh, okay. Like I had never really thought about it that way. And so we began to dive into it. But yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And what most of us do is that we you don't like you just said it. You don't know what you don't know. And so we just cruise along thinking everything's okay in a sense. I don't know if we lie to ourselves or we just aren't aware. And I like to think we just aren't aware.
Yeah. So let's talk about coaching, leadership coaching,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
people become better leaders, because it's a skill set that you
Mhm.
develop. It's not an overnight, or you're not born that way. So one thing that I've really noticed recently in the workplace is the increase in the sensitivity. If you're listening to my podcast, you're hearing me rant about this more than once. The increase in the sensitivity and the decrease in the resilience. And what that means, that results in a need for an increased level of care, but also an increased level of accountability. And how do you do that?
Very carefully.
Yes.
No, and I think just so I understand your question right, are you referring to as a leader with a group of people leading those people, how do you increase your accountability?
Yeah, how do you have to lead from such a heart-centered place
Hmm.
because of I think the workforce today, people have a lot, people require a lot more. It's
Yes.
different. So there
Yes.
has to be this heart-centered, I
Yes.
care about you as a human being. And at the same time, there needs to be something that I think is not a new thing. It's difficult to hold people accountable in a way that works, that doesn't make them check out or feel attacked or whatever it is, that has them want to engage and want to follow you and whatever, not follow you, but
Right.
go with the,
Yeah, to be on your team.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so how do you do those two things? Because I think it's a really difficult dynamic.
Yeah. And I think, no, you're exactly right. Because really, in order for us to have employees, shall we say, let's just go that way route, is employees that want to stay with us and that want to work with us, we have to really care for them, which is what you're talking about, the heart.
Hmm.
And see, and unfortunately, we come from a culture that really is all about management. So I want to manage you, and we've got to get this project done, and we've got to go from point A to point B, and let's get it done.
Hmm.
Versus, I want to come alongside of you, and I want to care about you, and together we are going to get to point B. Not like I'm going to leave you on your own. So I think when you talk about the heart and you talk about caring, it really comes to us coming alongside of each other and being able to value the other person, being
Mm.
able to, as the maybe the employer or the person who has hired you, to care that I really care about who you are as a person. I care about how do you approach your job? How can I add value to you? Instead of taking the opposite approach, like how much work am I going to get out of you? And
Right.
what are you going to do for me?
I love that, really focusing on the value and communicating that as well. Rather than thinking of it as I care about you getting enough sleep or that, but looking at it more, I work closely with a woman and I really value what she brings to the table. And
Yeah.
and listening to you, I'm like, I need to really tell her that more. But then, and what does that look like? I think it looks like when you give someone a raise, you're like, you earned this because
Mhm.
you bring so much value. Yeah.
And one of the things, Helena, I that it's a lesson that I teach, but it's called the law of the lid. But one of the things that I love about teaching this is like for people to really sit there and reflect. Okay, you're the employer of these three people or 20 people, however many people, and it's really your responsibility to raise these people up higher because the law of the lid says if you're okay on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're a 5, okay, that's great. But the thing is that as a leader, you need to allow the people to continue to rise in their leadership and in their abilities. And so, what we have to do as a leader is we have to not put a lid on our people.
Mm.
So what happens is that if you continue to allow them to grow and to learn and put them in a place where you care about them and you value them, and you're going to give them the leadership to continue to grow, you won't put a lid on them. You will let your lid go up so that they can continue to rise. At the same time, you're going to continue to rise too.
Right.
And so it goes both ways, but that you care enough to raise your lid.
I just had a vision of someone going, raise your lid, Helena, raise your lid. I'm trying. Uh, okay, let's talk about accountability. So,
Okay.
how do we do that in a successful way these days?
I think that, like you said earlier, is that accountability can be like a scary word in our culture. And
Right.
I think that for a lot of people that they're afraid that you're going to come down on them with a hammer. And so the approach that I always like to do with employers and employees is that we're here to work together.
Yeah.
We're here to walk side by side with each other. And the employer must see the value in the other person, where it's not, okay, give me your list. I'm going to make sure that you got 1 through 5 done. But
Mhm.
it's, let's make the list together.
Mm.
Let's come alongside of each other. And I'm going to help you make your list, and I'm going to help you to succeed in your list,
Yeah.
and that we are going to have a structure in which is what I try and help companies do all the time. Let's have a structure in which I can help you to be accountable, but this is not where I'm coming in on Monday at 8 in the morning and I'm going to come down hard on the hammer because last week you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z and you didn't get anything done.
No.
And so by developing this structure in which we say, okay, let's work. We've got A, B, and C. We start on Monday and say, okay, what are we going to accomplish this week? And then
Right.
we follow up on Friday to see how far we gone, or Wednesday, depending on personality, which is so important, and where the person is on their, shall we say, their journey into their own personal leadership.
I have a really interesting story about accountability that happened last week for me with a client. And I know there's some expectations that she's not meeting in her role. However, the person that manages her is not very clear
Mm-hmm.
about expectations.
Right.
Her contract has not been renewed, and she would like it renewed, but you have to understand, why is it not being renewed? Like, she hasn't asked about it because she doesn't want to push the situation. And I'm saying, you not asking about it makes it look like you're not engaged, A. And B, and so I coached her to ask about it and say, hey, I want to understand, what is it that I need to do to get back on contract? When I spoke to her, response was very, oh, it seems like I'm doing everything great. The feedback's good. And I was like, but you're not on contract. So there's some expectation that you don't know about that you're not meeting. And she got really upset about, felt like I was attacking her. And
Yeah.
I'm basically coaching you to get the information that you need. So a year from now, you're not fired. You know what I mean? Like, you,
Yeah. No,
at
I know exactly what you're talking about.
some point, you're going to lose your job because there's some expectation that you're not meeting. And by not addressing it, doesn't
Yeah.
make it go away.
Right.
Just, it just means that when you get fired, you didn't have a year's worth of opportunity to meet that expectation.
Right. And isn't it interesting, Helena, about because not knowing her, but she has two issues that she's really dealing with: the lack of ability to confront,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
lack of ability to communicate. And both of those things are so vital. Communication has to be the number one issue that most employers, employees, or people on contract, that they don't know how to do it, right? And most of the reason why is because they refuse, or again, it's awareness, but they skirt around the issue of the conflict.
Mm, yes. Yeah. I don't want to say too much more just in case she
Yeah,
listens.
right. I know, I totally get it. But it is a really great example because that's where I do almost 100%. I usually, when I work with a company, first thing I do is we do personality styles, and I have It's called the benchmark in which we hire and fire. And so we build the benchmark. So we do personality, then we build the benchmark, and then we have elements in which need to be met in order for us to be able to do this accountability and have people, employees that are actually like happy with where you live or where they work. So communication is like the very first step we take because everybody feels like they know how to communicate, but there's very few people that know how to connect. And that's the bottom line, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I'm trying to change the standard.
Right.
What I've been hired for is
Right.
to understand that they're all very nice and very kind, but they don't really address certain things. There to help them do that. And it's not pretty. It's difficult because then I'm getting a call saying, you're supposed to be here uplifting people and supporting people.
And then now the communication's gotten blocked, right?
Right,
What is your job? And
right.
what is the expectation? And so there's a communication block and that needs to be addressed because it's until it's understood, people will just continue to misunderstand what's supposed to be happening, shall we say.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Basically, that's what all the work that I do is coming in when there's been a communication breakdown, and however long that communication breakdown has been allowed to go for, how insidious, systemic it is, depends on how much of a mess it is and how long
Right. I'm sure it is. That's the conflict. And I think that's where individuals really, businesses, they need to be able to come to awareness of it. But sometimes they have to hire people like you to be able to say, okay, we have a mess, and how can you help us to get out of our mess?
yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also on me to verbalize that a little bit more, I think, to what is it that you really want from me? Because maybe I'm bringing something that they don't really want.
Yeah, that's one of the things I found too. This afternoon, I'm having a follow-up call with someone who sat down with me and I wrote out, she wanted X, Y, and Z. So she told me to want X, Y, and Z. We talked for an hour, right? So I sit there and I think, oh, this is what you want from me, right? I have a
Mhm.
5-page proposal of what I think she wants from me. But I really won't know for sure until I sit down with her today and we go through it. And then I say, okay, this is the way I structured it to do it this way. Now, it would be interesting if she said, "Oh, yeah, I love that." And then she signs the contract and then first day I get there and she goes, "No, that wasn't really what I wanted."
Mm.
You didn't communicate that very well. So, I'm sure.
Well, a part of that is people not being prepared to do what's required to get what they want. They do want that outcome. They're just maybe not comfortable
Right.
with what
And
needs.
it's awareness, right? They don't know here's what the outcome I want, but here I am is the gap in between that they don't know, right? Let's talk about something else then.
All right. Okay. Tell me, what about you? Do you have a fun case study you can tell me about with things were sticky?
Oh, they're sticky. You like sticky. Oh, I like good. Let me tell you some awesome things.
Tell me some awesome stuff that probably started out not awesome and then became awesome.
Okay, let me think. Yeah, most of mine are like, yeah,
That does sticky?
that's not too sticky. See, my stuff's never that sticky. It just starts out. Okay, so let me tell you about my purpose journey program that I have, the 6 month to 1 year coaching program with women. I started it because what happened is I would go into these groups, right? And I'd be putting stuff together for the group. And I had the first one that happened. I had this woman, we'll just call her Sue. And she came to me afterwards and she said, "Would you coach me about my job?" And I said, "Sure. Oh, yeah." So we did it on the side. And she said, "I really don't like my job." And I'm like, "Oh, totally fine. Like, I won't tell anybody." And I began to realize that I could understand why she didn't like it because she was like she's doing numbers. She loved numbers, but in the back room. And we started talking and I started getting to know her and coaching her. And what I came to realize is that she likes the numbers and stuff, but what she really would like to do is do numbers with people.
Mm.
And so it was really fun because she ended up, I was done with this company and she just kept going. And then she was able to find another job. And it didn't look like I'd ever get another job.
Okay.
And so that was really fun. And then went to work for a bank and she was like a loan officer who like worked with people. Yeah, it was super fun. And I've helped a couple other people too, because one of the ladies that one was really funny, was that when people go into this coaching program, it's not because they hate their jobs. It's really because they want to find out who they are. Some people do. That woman, she didn't like it. But I had this other woman who started off like month 3. I said, okay, now you told me your focus is to move into the job, your ideal job. She goes, yeah, I think I'm gonna stay at my current job a year or two and then to work into it. I'm like, that's perfect. Okay, let's start to think about what would it look like, what we'd have. And she missed a week and she calls me up the week that she's supposed to be meeting with me and you'll never believe this. I got this awesome job. I was like, hope no employer comes after me because I did not. You were not supposed to quit your job.
Yeah.
So that was the only sticky things. They really didn't come out for me, but it was fun.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I love helping women to find who they are.
I think there are definitely phases for women. Women have a lot. It's so radical when you have children and then when your children leave the house. Like those two stages are so disrupting to who you are as a human being and what you're capable of, what you learn through the process. And then I think that time where the kids leave and now you're so much more back to taking care of yourself. And
Mhm.
there's so much focus outside of yourself when you have children. You're still doing everything, but you're like a machine. And so then
Oh, yeah.
suddenly a whole lot of stuff that you've been doing, it's like a job. Suddenly you just lost your job
Yeah.
and you've got all of this energy, but you're this whole different person because you've been a mom and you've done all of that. And it's okay, so how do I repurpose myself now?
Right. Yes. And that's so true because I always tell the women is that it's you're driving down the road and everything's good. And then all of a sudden you're looking ahead and it's like a dead end. And you're just like, wait a minute, I thought this road went somewhere. And then you get to the end. Yeah, actually does. But you got to go right or yeah to make a choice. Are you going to go right or are you going to go left? And you're like, dude, I was just going straight. And you're like, no. So yeah, when they get to about junior high and high school, it's always a good thing to sit down and say, okay, what's my next phase, my next season? What's my next purpose? And I think that's where a lot of women just get there and then their car sputters and stops. And they're like, dude, what
And
happened?
I just was thinking to myself, I think getting physical at that moment is what's really important to actually start on that physical level, get a trainer, get fit again, start doing like physically hard things. And I think that in itself perpetuates the change to then start, okay, if I'm going to have to get up and go for a run, then I'm going to go to bed a little bit earlier. Maybe I'm going to drink a little less wine. Maybe, and it just
Eat a
starts
lot less food.
less of that cheesecake. Oh, yeah.
Right. I make a different choice.
But I do, I really feel, and I'm reflecting on my own journey coming out of having 3 kids and how valuable getting fit was.
Huh? Yeah.
And then continuing to be fit, which I need to remind myself I need to get a trainer.
And I think that obviously for every person, the journey is a tad bit different. But I think what it is that coming to that place of and saying, okay, I need to be aware of what this next phase looks like, this next stage looks like. And when you get to there, instead of your car sputtering and stopping,
Right.
change out before that happens, right?
Yeah.
Any of your listeners who are listening, I'd love to chat with you. Chatting with me doesn't cost anything; it's free. But where you're at, because sometimes that's all we need is we need a coach. We need just to be in that environment where we're coming to awareness of who we are at this new stage. That's it.
Right. And in all areas, all aspects,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
know,
and I totally agree on that one. So,
yeah.
personal
Like,
life makes every difference on your professional life.
oh, it starts 100% starts with your personal life.
That's right. Yeah, one of the things that I do with my clients is that I start, even if they have their personal life all in order, I always start with, I have a wheel and we look at the 8 areas of your personal life. Very first thing, because I want to know that there's not one that you've been neglecting. Because oftentimes with women, we'll be like, oh, my finances are fine. And then, yeah, crap, they're like, not. Or it'll be something else, right? It'll be maybe a relationship, or it'll be, like you said, your body. You haven't taken care of it in a long time. Your intellect. I find a lot of women do not challenge themselves, whether it's through reading or any of that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Helena.